Welcome to Thursday Thoughts. This week, I thought I'd talk just a little bit about what is really the central point of classical education, and it really comes back to the idea of the liberal arts. And I think today we have a much different conception of what the liberal arts are than what they originally were. I think a lot of times today we think liberal arts is the degree you get in college if you're intending to grow up and um, be a barista at a coffee shop, or you can't really get a job with it, but you just kind of took all these things that you were interested in college, and so you got a liberal arts degree. And I think colleges have in a lot of ways kind of made that the liberal arts. You kind of pick and choose what you think is you enjoy and is important to you, and then somehow that is liberal arts. But in a classical sense, the liberal arts were the 7 subjects that a human needed to understand to be free humans. And that really comes back to those 2 words, liberal, like our word liberty, the idea of being free, and arts, the Latin word that means skill. And so these were the skills that made a man free, or skills necessary for a person to be free. And the first 3 liberal arts we generally talk about a lot in classical education. We hear grammar, logic, and rhetoric and go, oh yeah, those are key phrases of classical education. But the other 4 liberal arts we kind of hear less of, and those would be arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, music. And all of these are a little different than maybe we initially think of, but they all are the part of what we call the classical liberal arts. And these were the things that people needed to know to be free humans. And so I think the best way to kind of explain this would be a story from the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. If you've never read it, it's a short book. It's a great book. But in that book, he recounts how the wife of his master had started to teach him how to read. And the master came in one day. He was angry, and he yelled at his wife, and he said, "If you teach him to read, he will never be fit to be a slave." And I think that sums up the idea that we study these things so that we are free to be what God has made us to be. And so we go back to the ideas of grammar, logic, rhetoric, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, music. These are all ways for us to see who we are, who God is, and how to glorify him better. And they give us the freedom to do, well, any number of things. And so that's why they're called the liberal arts, is they are the arts that are worthy of a free person. And we start with grammar, logic, and rhetoric because these are the gatekeepers to the other liberal arts. These are the ways you get to the other liberal arts. And that's why we focus on them so much in school, is because these are the ways to get into those other things. And so if you look at grammar, logic, and rhetoric, the way I like to explain it to families is think of Legos, right? Think of Legos. The grammar stage of learning is like when you collect your Legos. And if you have Legos at home, you know they're all over the house. And but in order to build something, you have to get your pieces together. And that's what grammar is. That's what students do in what we call grammar school, is they learn their multiplication tables. They learn how to add. They learn the rules of grammar for literature. They learn how to read. They learn all these little pieces that later on are going to help them in the logic stage of learning. And that is when we start to take all those Legos, all those things we've collected, and put them together in an orderly way. And a lot of times that means early on with instruction, right? Your children will sit with instructions, and they'll take the Legos and they will follow the instructions and make something really cool. And that's what we're doing in the logic stages. We're saying all those things you've memorized, all those things you've gathered together, how do we make them fit together now? And then finally, we end with rhetoric. It's when we learn to do this on our own. We learn to take our ideas and present them in a beautiful way. And so maybe moving away from the instructions a little bit and creating something ourselves. And rhetoric today has kind of a bad connotation. We tend to think of it as empty words. But we know traditionally it's the ability to convey an idea beautifully. And so that's our goal in education, is to get to the point that we can express it beautifully. And that's why our seniors here give a senior speech before the student body and faculty and parents, is because they're learning to convey their ideas beautifully. And so those are the gateway pieces to getting into the other liberal arts. And we're going to talk about those other liberal arts next week, actually, and how they point us back to truth and to who God is. But grammar, logic, and rhetoric are the first three. And then next week we'll continue on. So thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great day.